In the heart of Ghana, a silent struggle unfolds as countless children toil in hazardous conditions, trapped in the clutches of child labor. The Volta Lake and Yeji, very good source of life and livelihood, have also become a grim symbol of exploitation. The reality of child labor is that the child labor remains a harsh reality in Ghana, with many children forced into hazardous work environments instead of experiencing the right to education and a nurturing childhood. 17-year-old Richard Aja has been a victim of hazardous work on the Volta Lake.
When I
was with my uncle, I was schooling, but I wasn't doing well with my studies. My uncle then told me to leave school and rear cattle because that would be profitable. So I dropped out of school and took up the cattle job. Then my mother intervened and said she would not allow me to do that kind of job, and so she would come for me.
Oh, mommy, banning ye, sir, Nanche Jumanitino, Baba Fanny Ba. No, buy 2 times on to my family. Into one to my family, Namacasa, me pray me who say, and they say, me at the me call me mamma.
She tried coming for me twice, but was unsuccessful. When my mother was not successful, I decided to run away. They pursued me, but they didn't see me. However, I couldn't succeed in my attempt. I came back home, and so they asked me to return to school, so during the vacation, I could go to my mom. I then returned to my mom at the age and never returned to my uncle.
Miko school kakra say ye makwan na makomi mame ho nti ye makwan na mi kai omo na mi su mi ko mame ho nti mi ko mo mi mame say o ma mi san ko mi wo fa no ho bio na mi di be pim wo ye jim.
These children endure grueling hours, dangerous conditions, and the denial of their basic human rights.
So say edru tama pampro fufuro ba e be she pampro isuma.
We sometimes cast the ropes down and then tie them around a tree. We come out of the water after that. Sometimes we are met with monstrous winds. Some are able to survive. If luck eludes you, then that becomes your fate. Some die in the process, and for others, luck smiles on them and are rescued by another canoe.
Isaac Kwe paints a story grim, pain, and depression.
The first day we arrived at Volta, 7 p.m. in the evening. They asked us to go for fishing, and we came back around 4 a.m. and then we go again and come back around 12, and then we go again, and then we come back around 5, and we rest only just 2 hours, 5, 6, 7, and then I asked myself, so is that the work I am supposed to do here? But in my place, if you go to in the morning, in the evening you will rest. But this place, it seems it is different too. So out of the 24 hours, I just rest at only 2 hours, from 5 to 7, only 2 hours.
Kwesi was once trapped in the horrifying clutches of human trafficking. His life was marked by hardship and exploitation, forced to work long hours in hazardous conditions on fishing boats instead of experiencing the joys of childhood. However, through dedicated effort and the transformative power of education, Kwesi's life has taken a remarkable turn. When Kwesi was rescued from the shackles of trafficking, he was placed in the care of Challenging Heights, an organization committed to rehabilitating and reintegrating trafficking survivors. The organization not only focused on meeting Kwesi's immediate needs, but also recognized the pivotal role of education in breaking the cycle of poverty and exploitation. As he immersed himself in learning, his passion for education ignited. From being denied the opportunity to hold a pencil, he now reveled in the joy of reading, writing, and exploring new knowledge. Today, Kwesi stands as a shining example of resilience and the transformative power of education. He has blossomed into a determined, compassionate, and accomplished young individual eager to make a positive impact on the world. At Challenging Heights, Kwesi is now an employee, a teacher, and a house parent, helping to shape and mold the life of the less privileged in society.
I remember that we went for the fishing, and then the same net catch under the tree, and then they asked me to dive. When I dive, I nearly die over there. We have some hook. If you check this place, you can see. If my leg too, I have many marks, and this place. So I just cut the rope, and so that I just cut the rope, and so that I can able to save my life.
Amazed in this darkness, one organization shines as a beacon of hope. Challenging Heights, a dedicated child rights organization, has undertaken the formidable task of rescuing children from slavery on the Volta Lake.
Challenging Heights started 18 years ago. I was still working with Barclays Bank, and I felt that there was a need for me to address issues of my childhood. You know, myself, I was a victim of the situation, having worked on Lake Volta for a cumulative period of 7 years back and forth. And starting school virtually when I was 13 years, when I could not even write A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, having to support myself through school from that age. When I eventually made it through education to the University of Ghana and got a job with Barclays Bank, I started earning income. I felt that we should not allow children to go through the pains and abuse situations that I went through. So I started Challenging Heights basically to address the issues of my childhood, because I felt that the pains were too much in growing up in those fishing communities and working as a fisherman. But I also felt that never again should we allow any children to go through the situation that I went through. So I started Challenging Heights to create a platform to allow children to be children again and to restore childhoods to those whose childhoods have been destroyed. So that's how Challenging Heights started. It started from my story of pain to a story where I became a banker and wanting to address the issues.
The pervasive issue of child labor in Ghana highlights the relentless efforts of Challenging Heights to bring freedom and a brighter future to these innocent souls.
Most of these children, about 80% or more of the children that we rescue from Lake Volta have never gone to school, and we would have sent them to school for the first time, you know. So that is a very big motivation for me. The relief that comes to the children, the joy that comes to the parents, and the prospect that this work has for the children's future. In they being able to go to school, getting employable skills, and being able to have life and livelihoods, be able to fend for themselves and their families.
Challenging Heights, a leading child rights organization in Ghana, has taken up the arduous task of rescuing children from the clutches of slavery on the Volta Lake. Founded by James Kofi Annan, a former child slave himself, Challenging Heights tirelessly works to rescue, rehabilitate, and reintegrate these children into society.
So far in our history, in terms of actual victims of trafficking and slavery, we've rescued almost 1,800 children. That's different from the several hundreds of children that we have supported who were vulnerable, were not victims of trafficking, but we supported. But in terms of those who were actually trafficked or used in worse forms of child labor or forced labor, we've rescued over 1,800 children. Now, some of the children, when we rescued, you find that they are virtually destroyed. We have rescued some children with hepatitis B and stages. We've rescued some children with typhoid. We rescued some children with all manner of diseases. Malaria, skin diseases, skin patches, eye diseases, ear impairment, very, very often, with some fluid dripping out of their ears. Rescue children that even if you put fire on their palm, they won't feel it because of the hardened palm as a result of the work that they were doing. We've rescued children who had skills, virtually skills on their skins. Like when they scratch their body, you see skills coming, like as if they are fish. And I had the same situation when I was a child working on the lake. When I used to, if I scratch my body, you see skills coming out. Rescue children who could not hear anything. Rescue children who had vengeance, pains in their eyes, pains in their faces. Children who wish other children died. Children who wish children of their masters died. They were ready to kill the children of their masters. Children who were ready to kill their masters. The situation we're talking about is a situation where children were turned into breadwinners for themselves, for their families, and for other people they don't know. So when we're talking about trafficking on Lake Volta, we're talking about a human rights issue, but also we are talking about issues that border on security and safety.
Their mission extends beyond rescue operations, as they also advocate for policy reforms, raise awareness, and empower communities to combat child labor. Children who hitherto were deprived of education now have the benefit of receiving education from facilities put up by Challenging Heights. Challenging Heights operates daring rescue missions, infiltrating the treacherous waters of the Volta Lake to free children from slavery. Once rescued, the organization provides comprehensive support, including shelter, healthcare, counseling, and access to education. Through a holistic approach, they aim to heal the physical and psychological scars afflicted upon these children, allowing them to regain their lost childhood and reclaim their dreams.
Usually when we rescue these children, we have a rehabilitation center that we put them in. The recovery center looks at the psychosocial support for them. The recovery center looks at nutritional support, medical support, because these children come with a lot of issues. So it looks at all those things and address them. We provide medical care, provide food, we provide counseling support, we provide literacy and educational support for them, take them to school. And after some time, when we have been able to help them restore from the pain that they've gone through, we reintegrate them to communities and their families. And we continue to support them from there, taking some to school, others to apprenticeship, depending on the situation of the child. And now we are even supporting some all the way to the university, because we want to raise an army of children who have been affected by trafficking, who would then become advocates for the issues that we are dealing with. So we are now supporting some who are in the university.
Through community education programs, vocational training, and income-generating initiatives, the organization empowers families to break the cycle of poverty and exploitation, providing sustainable alternatives to child labor.
So globally, about a decade ago, we used to have 245 million children in child labor, according to the ILO. Now, by 2016, the figure has reduced from 245 million to 151 million children in child labor. Unfortunately, as at now, we have reversed the trend to 160 million children being in child labor. So almost about 9 million children have been added to the stock of children who are in child labor. So that impacts a lot, everywhere. I mean, these figures are coming from different countries. But in Ghana, we were doing much better at a point. Of course, we know that in the face of the COVID pandemic, when children were not in school, they were in homes and schools were closed, it presented a lot more vulnerabilities, and that's why I'm seeing a lot of increase in the numbers. Just imagine on Lake Volta, along the Lake Volta, we did a report last year that stated that 60% of all children living there were found in child labor. So that is the kind of situation that we are dealing with. Nationally, I have said that we are 21% children who are in child labor between the ages of 5 and 17. But the figure is more even staggering. Other places in this country. In the northern Ghana, we have 33% of all children.
I was even about to reference that. Yes. About 33%. 33%
of all children in the northern region who are in child labor. In fact, in Upper West region, we have 44% of all children between the ages of 5 and 17 who are in child labor. And the shocking thing is that when it goes to the farming areas, the cocoa growing areas, the agricultural areas in general, we have 79% of all children between the ages of 5 and 17 who are in child labor.
Nationally, 419,254 children aged 5 to 17 years were engaged in economic activities during the 2021 population and housing census. 76,439 children aged 5 to 9 years, 153,189 aged 10 to 14 years, and 189,626 aged 15 to 17 years. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, nationally, 153,773 children aged 5 to 17 years engaged in economic activity had never attended school. Out of this number, 37,963 children were 5 to 9 years. For 14-year-old Forgive, but for the intervention of Challenging Heights, she wouldn't have known where to be.
Challenging Heights, yes, Sinamiti, Sono. I say, my bam, my yellow, moody me go hospital. Now, so tell me, my auntie, Jimmy Yellow, move from me go hospital. See me yellow cries still. Missing concerns my bammy yara, me a commandant penny modimico, and I mean, cause be cogidua, or modimico space, me now will not move, modimico hospital, no more coach, me cancer, not debut, ma'am. And the challenge that yes, a time you watch age. And you see me, yes, it's I seen a meeting soon. Challenge nights from the most in person, I miss from no Musam born the mal.
Challenging Heights collaborate with government agencies, international organizations, and local stakeholders to advocate policy reforms and strengthen the legal framework against child labor. Their relentless advocacy efforts aim to create an environment that protects children from exploitation, holds perpetrators accountable, and provides opportunities for their holistic development.
We enacted the Children's Act in 1998. The Children's Act spells out what child labor is and who is supposed to work at what point. It is not acceptable in any shape or form that a child below the age of 18 will engage in hazardous work. Hazardous work includes fishing, mining, and forced prostitution. So these are all things that have been defined already. And in Ghana, we have the hazardous work framework that defines what a child can do and what a child cannot do. Now, if you don't invest well, and when I say investment, I mean funding for the state institutions such as the Child Labor Unit, the Children's Department, the Department of Social Welfare, etc., they are not going to be able to do their work. If you just imagine a ministry department that in a whole year is giving less than 200,000 to fight against a situation where it's endemic. In Ghana, we are talking about 21% of children's population between the ages of 5 and 17 all being in child labor.
Challenging Heights' unwavering commitment has yielded inspiring success stories. Former child slaves have transformed into empowered advocates, actively participating in the organization's outreach programs and raising awareness about child labor.
When I grew up small, like from 15, like from 12 to 13 years, you have to work with them. So sometimes I used to dive. When I grew up, I used to dive. Like I used to do so many things because there's a lot of things over there. And I quite remember that time they opened the dam over there, so it was like the water would be full. I remember there sometimes they would be calling us to fight, just like that, to see who is the boss. So it would be like we are friends, and they will be calling us to come and fight. So sometimes when you fight, the winner will, take your food and eat it, like that. So here, they don't do those things here. They don't insult someone, like they teach you manners and those stuffs. So when I came here when I started school, like they were helping me, the teachers, both the teachers and the parents were helping me. So I stick in my mind that I have to take my learnings very serious.
The organization continues to receive applause from beneficiaries of the hard work and sacrifices of Challenging Heights. These stories of resilience and triumph serve as a testament to the transformative impact of Challenging Heights' work. Child labor on Ghana's Volta Lake continues to mar the lives of countless children, robbing them of their innocence and potential. However, Challenging Heights stands as a formidable force against this injustice, fighting tirelessly to rescue and rehabilitate these children.
First, na minimum de na sisi ami ba ha de nyakuadum. Ma be like first no. So we see me spell me dimpo me to me spelling. Now so Challenging Heights for my dum tino. Say me name me this spelling. Now so aka akeka ya me yire mo say met ma kinkan oh me ba there I hire fine I hire titiapa we share abrabo am afemu no like me ba no sa abrabo nyina afremi so ya mitimi dwen so djuma na me say o challenge na djuma mo ye na ye pa.
In my experience here at that time, I am because of what I have been through. I don't like it. I hate by mostly the human. But it took me about 10 years. When I came here, they taught me art therapy, CBI, child cancer, and how to manage your behavior. So, and then they take me to some counselors. So now they have helped me, and then my educational background too. Now I am at university level 100, reading and accounting.
Through their multifaceted approach, the organization brings hope and healing to the lives of those affected by child labor, while working to create a society that protects the rights and dignity of every child. Together, we can break the chains and forge a brighter future for Ghana's children.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us here on the AM show. I'm sure watching that may have given you goosebumps, goose pimples at a point as you looked at, well, how some of our children fall prey to trafficking and some of what they have to go through from time to time. Well, joining us on a conversation as we mark World Day Against the Trafficking of Persons, we have in the studio James Kofi Annan. He is president, Challenging Heights. You heard him a short while ago. We also have Enoch Derry Pufar. He is programs director, Challenging Heights. Both of them join us this morning for a conversation. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
And for you, James, the interesting bit in all of this, even before we get to talk about Challenging Heights and what you do, is that you were a child slave and you never got to school until age 13. Tell us a bit about, just to situate the conversation, tell us a bit about that experience.
Well, thank you, and I'll say good morning to your viewers. So, obviously, you know that I'm from Winneba, and I was from a small village at that time, Winneba. And when I was growing up, almost every home had been affected by trafficking. And
so it was rife. It was common.
Yes, at that time, almost every home had an experience with trafficking.
Wow.
And I'm the 12th child of my parents. So my mother had 12 children, I'm the last one. And a number of them were also affected by trafficking. So at the age of 6, as would have been expected, I was also thrown into the same situation. My typical day...
So your other siblings, some of them had gone through...
Oh, yes. My other siblings before me, some of them had gone through the situation. So when I was thrown into the situation, my typical day started from 3 a.m. till 8 p.m., typically. Even though sometimes it will flip to say 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. Almost throughout, from Monday to Saturday. Now, Sundays, because we were predominantly Christians, and most of the people I work with were in the same church with me, African Faith Tabernacle Church. We'll go to church on Sunday morning, and then by 12 noon, we'll go and do net mending. So you're talking about virtually 6.5 days of work every week, every month, throughout the year, for a cumulative period of 7 years whilst I was working there. And in most cases, you are deprived of food, like you eat once a day. If you're lucky, you eat twice, 3 times a day. There's a bumper harvest, sort of. There's no medical care. When you are sick, you don't have access to any hospital or clinic. I mean, these are islands.
We're using herbs,
herbal medications, and so on and so forth. And you will not totally recover, but you have to go back. And work. And what was even more painful, apart from...
And I've heard, my apologies, I've heard in some other stories that sometimes if you are unable to help participate in the fishing and all of that, you may even be deprived of food as a form of punishment.
It is not me. You will. I mean, you have to participate. How can you say you will not participate? And if you don't, then you don't get anything to eat at all. See? And so these things, apart from everything, you are also punished in manners that is deterrent to other children when you make a mistake. So you're not expecting to make a mistake. Just imagine a child of 6 years old, as I was, being asked to scoop water from the boat almost throughout the entire day. Like that will be my activity, starting activity throughout. So you just, as the canoe roams on the waters, water comes in. So you have to scoop it out. And so if that is my task, and I keep on doing it, as a child, I'll get tired. In fact, in the process, you will find me sleeping or dozing off. And the only way to quicken me will be to hit me in order to stay alert and continue to do the work. In the video, when we are talking about the ages of those children, sometimes people don't understand. In the video, you see even 4-year-olds on the lake working. They are doing tasks that are above their strength, about their intellectual capacity, etc. So that's the kind of experiences that I went through as a child from 6 to 13 years when I then escaped to start school. So I started the school at the age of 13 when I didn't know how to write A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3.
What a way to kickstart, a child's life. But let me come to Enoch now. It is on the back of what he has experienced and what many others like him have experienced that we have Challenging Heights. Tell us a bit about Challenging Heights and the work you do. You are programs director. Right.
Thank you very much. So Challenging Heights is an organization founded by our president, who is with us here. We are almost 20 years in existence. And the core focus of the organization is to rescue children who have been trafficked into slavery, and then we recover them and then try to restore their lives back. So basically what Challenging Heights does is to go to rescue children, and then after the rescue, we take them through a process of recovery or rehabilitation. Some of the things we see is that when the children come back, they are very aggressive. I think some of them were mentioned in the documentary. They are very aggressive. They are less forgiving. You do something to him or her, they will ensure that they retaliate, right? So we give them a number of activities at the recovery house, including art therapy. We let them do a lot of cultural activities, sporting activities. And importantly, at the recovery center, we seek to screen them health-wise, identify the sicknesses and diseases that they may have returned from the lake with, and then we provide medical support for them. The recovery center also helps to identify the hidden talents of the children. While they are there over a period, we tend to identify their potentials and then build them to either go into the formal educational system or into a vocational training. So from the recovery center, we do a reunification with identified responsible caregivers, not necessarily their parents, but if it is the parents, and we take them through some counseling and everything, realize that this adult who has been identified is capable of taking care of the child, then we reunify the child or reintegrate the child with that person, and then the child then goes to school or undertakes a vocational training. What we also do is that, so a common driver of trafficking is poverty. So once you are doing this, you have to be looking at the preventive side of things. So we also provide some kind of support to the families of the caregivers and then families that we've identified with children at risk of trafficking. Some of them are in businesses, so we try to support their businesses so that if they have something to be able to take...
Obviously, they will not then be persuaded to, like in his circumstance. I'm sure the financial bit also came through.
Yeah. So you'll be amazed at the prices at which children are given away. Right. You'll be very amazed at that.
Tell us about some of them. I've heard in the past that some can be given away for just a few cedis.
50 cedis, things like that. And sometimes when the children are there, a lot of things happen. One of the things we are noticing is that slave masters are now using a system of indoctrination. So once the children are there, they tell them things that will let them hate their own parents and families, so that they don't want to see them again. So when we even go with the support of the state institution like the human trafficking unit and then the social welfare, they don't want to even come back.
Some of them may even be told that your people don't want you. That's why they brought you.
That's why they brought you.
So then the child feels, if they don't want me, what am I going back there to do? Right.
So we do this, and then within our operations, we see sensitization as one of the key things, because although we have developed as a country, but the ignorance, the lack of knowledge still persists. So whatever we do, we still try to educate the people, let them know that, look, if you do this, these are the effects of the children, on the children.
Before I come back to James, very quickly, this thought just came to mind. Oftentimes do we hear that there is a case of sexploitation, that sometimes they are exploited sexually. Is that something that in your work you've come to witness or you see?
Yes, so sexual exploitation is one of the things that the victims go through when they are on the lake, especially the females, victims of trafficking. The sad thing is that when they come back, because of the sensitivity of the issue, they don't open up immediately. So some of these things, we get to know about it much later when they undergo the recovery and they now begin to trust the people they are with. Then they now begin to open up, and then they tell you that, look, this person even did this to me when I was on the lake. This person did that and all that. Yes, so it's a reality.
Yeah. And sometimes memories are just coming. I either have read or I've had a conversation where sometimes even if you are one of the child slaves, but if you are able to help get a bumper harvest or something, then a female there would be, you would, have that. And so basically you are getting the two of them who are slaves into a very sad situation. All of that.
Yes, I wanted to add to what you said specifically about this issue. So the exploitation that you talked about is one of the major tools that are deployed with the girls who are involved in human trafficking, especially on Lake Volta. So when the girls go, they do the cooking, washing, and all of that. But they also serve as an additional job of being sex materials. So, for instance, what you're talking about, girls being asked to go to this man or that man, and for sex, to reward him or him because of bumper harvest. But also, there are situations where the men may not want to work. And so, if you had a girl and I have a man or a young boy who doesn't want to go to work today because he's strong and is resistant, I can just come to you and say, can you give me your akwesua? I want him to do something for my boy. So you agree. You give me your akwesua. I take the akwesua to Kojo, who is refusing to work. Just go to Kojo, he's in the room. You go and just lie down. Kojo sleeps with you. Just like that. And you do that not once, not twice. I mean, in a week, if you are 13, 14 years old, you are likely to have service boys probably 4 times in a week, kind of. So that is the kind of situation that the girls go through. So they get pregnant without knowing who made them pregnant. Remember last time when I was here, I told you that we had a 13-year-old girl who had a 1-year-old son. Such a person would have been pregnant at the age of 12. But up to now, we don't even know who made that girl pregnant. And it is as a result of the fact that there were multiple boys involved, and she was not the one who elected to give herself to those multiple men. It was a force that compelled her to give herself to those multiple men in order to have sex with. So those are the situations that we are dealing with.
Let's talk now about World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. It's actually marked on the 30th day of July. And the theme for this year, reach every victim of trafficking, leave no one behind. Tell us a bit more about this day and what it means for people like you, your organization, and for all of those child slaves or those who are being trafficked.
Yes, so the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons has been instituted and recognized internationally to bring attention to people who are suffering from human trafficking and modern slavery. Because, over the years, not much attention has been paid to the situation. It is to draw government's attention to looking at their own processes, their own actions, policies, institutions that fight against human trafficking, and to also draw civil society's involvement in creating awareness about the situation so that all of us will recognize victims if we meet one. All of us will take actions if we have to take one. All of us would help with advocacy of implementation of laws and policies and frameworks if we have to do so. So that is basically about World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. In Ghana here, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection is spearheading that. So we'll lead that with them. But for us as an organization, Challenging Heights, what we want to use the occasion for is for all of us to recognize that the problem exists and that there are human beings, especially children and women, who are going through traumatizing experiences as a result of this human trafficking and modern slavery. And that all of us, businesses, individuals, media, all of us would have to pay attention to the plight of these victims who are helpless. And many of these victims are held in isolation in places where it's not accessible. They cannot help themselves unless we go to help them. And therefore, we, all of us, would have to be one in helping the victims of human trafficking.
Anything else you'd like to add in terms of a brief overview of this day and what it represents?
So I think that to commemorate the day, the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime issued a release, and I think the global concern this year is the rather slow response of countries to the issue of trafficking. And so the call is for a lot more effort to be done by both state and non-state actors to do a lot more in combating trafficking, in recognizing, as our president said, in recognizing trafficking as an issue, and to continuously sensitize people of all sectors, all categories, that trafficking indeed still exists as an issue and must be prioritized, and the countries must allocate resources so that the implementation of the anti-trafficking laws is effectively done. We do have a lot of laws in the country. When it comes to the legal framework, we are not lacking. But what we need is the effective implementation of these laws. Yeah.
Can you give us, additionally, before I come back to James, a brief overview of what the global picture is when it comes to trafficking? I was just checking out the UN page, and it appears even detection of trafficking is falling.
Yeah. So
what is the global picture?
Yeah, so all that is reflected in this year's message by the UN, the Drugs and Crime Office. As you rightly mentioned, detection has fallen by, I think, 11%.
11%.
And then prosecution has also fallen. Yeah. So the key issue, what it means is that not a lot is being done in punishing trafficking as a crime. Not a lot is being done. So it all goes within the issue of the states allocating resources and prioritizing it. When you come to Ghana as a country, our challenge seems to be, in terms of prosecution, seems to be with the weaknesses in the social protection systems that we have. We don't have a good social protection system. So when you prosecute, the question is, what happens next? if let's say the parents of the child were those who sold the child into trafficking, and you end up jailing them, where does the child go? Is the state ready to take care of the children? And when you also...
And we know the answer to that.
Yes.
Rehabilitation facilities,
yes.
even for those
yes.
who are incarcerated. Yeah. What is it like?
Yeah.
And to think of...
And as soon as you initiate prosecution against parents and people in the community, the children become outcasts. Their families don't want to have anything to do with them and all that. So these are clear challenges to the issue of prosecutions and all that we have as a country.
And briefly to add, because I want to find out from you how countries are, dealing with this human trafficking menace, modern day slavery, if you like.
Yes, I will connect what I'm going to add to that one quickly. So globally, there are almost 50 million human beings who are victims of human trafficking and modern slavery, according to the Global Slavery Index. And most of these are children and women. We also know that globally, the profit out of human trafficking and modern slavery is over $150 billion.
The billions.
Every year. So that is how it is, in this world. So we are not talking about only Ghana, we are talking about so many countries in this world who are all, having issues with modern slavery and human trafficking. Now,
but in terms of our own efforts, yes, there's a global context, but in Ghana, how much have we done?
In Ghana, you see, so we have the human trafficking law, and then we have the National Plan of Action. We have institutions like the Human Trafficking Secretariat placed under the Gender Ministry. We have the Anti-Human Trafficking Unit of Ghana Police Service. So in terms of institutions and laws, we are doing well. But as Enoch said, in terms of implementation, we are lacking. And it is because we are lacking, that's why we have so many children who are victims of human trafficking and modern slavery. There are a lot of countries making effort, but the effort that the West are making is backed by action. You see, so if you go to Australia, for instance, they have the Modern Slavery Act, which they passed in 2018. The Modern Slavery Act is rigorously enforced. If you go to UK, they have the Modern Slavery Act as well, which was passed in 2015. It is rigorously enforced. That requires companies to even report on their website the effort they are making to address human trafficking and modern slavery. You go to the Netherlands, similar story. But when you come to our side, implementation becomes the challenge.
And that's quite a situation, which brings me to the next question. In terms of, like you said, entities even have to put on their website what they are doing to counter child trafficking, trafficking in persons, from their own standpoint. What then is the role that businesses, in our context, I'm talking about big business, medium business, small business, can do in counteracting trafficking? Because a lot of the time, the end game is work. And it also ends up in some entities, which is why maybe the sweatshops in China and India over time have come under scrutiny, because most of the things, maybe a lot of the clothes we are wearing, you would see China or India or something from there. But what happens in those shops? How are the people treated? What is the situation here?
Yes, so in Ghana, unfortunately, our businesses are more or less pushing themselves as if they are not the one who have caused the problem. So it is...
Have they caused it?
It is, yes, businesses are connected to modern slavery and human trafficking. See, how are they connected? I'm sure that will be your next question. So every single business would have to look at its own internal processes and supply chains. And once you look into that, you will realize that in some way or the other, you are connected. Let's take the banks. The $150 billion annual profit from human trafficking and modern slavery, where does it flow through? Is it not through the financial system? So it means that you as a banker or financial institution, you are also making profit off of the victim's effort.
Directly or indirectly?
Directly or indirectly, because the money is flowing through your supply chains, and you are making profit out of that. So, for instance, I traffic you, just as an example, I traffic you. Probably in course of using you, I've gained about 10,000 Ghana cedis out of your effort. That 10,000 Ghana cedis, I put it in the bank. The bank invests that money in treasury bills or whatever it is, and the bank gets profit out of it. So indirectly, by trafficking you, the bank has profited out of your pain. So you cannot then sit down and say that it's not your concern. It is your concern. Go into the mining sectors. You will see very small children who are being used for all manner of things. You say, oh, Galamsey is informal, so it is not our business. But when the Galamseyers get the money, where did they put the money? They put it in the bank.
So as far as Ghana is concerned, are there no entities that are sort of standing up and saying, you know what, let's be a shining example? And I pose that question in this context. In the West and all of that, you say they are rising up.
Yeah.
But some of these entities are here. They are from the West and they are in Ghana. Why is it that when they come here, they don't own up to such responsibility?
Yeah, that is why it's quite shocking. I mean, UK requires all their companies, whether in their country or outside, to publicly declare their effort towards human trafficking and modern slavery. So I'm expecting a bank like, I'm just using an example, like Stanchart, you know, to do that. I'm expecting Vodafone to do that. You know, the Australian Modern Slavery Act also required their companies to do so. So I'm expecting all the mining companies that are coming from Australia to take action. But unfortunately, because as a country, we have kept quiet over their responsibility, they are also shaking that responsibility. And that's why we are doing this advocacy, that businesses must rise up to the occasion and be counted. They should not think that they are not part of the situation, right, but they are part. They are perpetrators, they are connectors, they are connected to the human trafficking situation.
Coming to you, Enoch, how then is Challenging Heights helping in Ghana to counter trafficking, not just child trafficking, but trafficking in general and modern-day slavery? What have you been up to?
So what we do as an organization, apart from the rescue activities and all that we do, we embark on international and national level advocacy.
International and national level
advocacy, including, we use our international platforms, partners platforms, to sensitize or to create awareness of the issue of trafficking, and also to initiate conversations like what we are just talking about, the businesses and modern slavery. Getting to the end of last year and then into this year, we came in and tried to initiate the discussions around businesses having due diligence provisions as a way of addressing modern slavery in businesses. We've issued a number of press releases. We've done publications in the newspapers to draw attention to it. We've petitioned the African Continental Free Trade Area on that. And then currently we are embarking on a self-funded research on that. And what we are doing is, we've identified a couple of organizations. We've written to them. We want to come and discuss with you, talk to you, your managers, and then your employees about this. And believe me, as at, I think Thursday or Friday, when I had a conversation with the officers, only 3 organizations have given us a positive feedback. The rest are saying, okay, we are still looking at it. We need to do this. We need that kind of thing. So,
what is the fear?
I don't know. Like, maybe it is lack of knowledge of the implications of it, or rather maybe also on the benefit of it, like availing yourself to such an exercise is even a plus that, look, it's not like we are not fault finders. When the issue exists, if you know that an issue exists, you acknowledge that it exists, it gives you an opportunity to be able to act responsibly, take steps to remedying it, rather than being there and maybe it exists and for all you know, and in most of the places, if you look at the evidence, sometimes the top managers don't know, especially the issues of the sexual aspect of things. People who are employed into organizations and maybe taken advantage of and all that, managers don't get to know about that. So we think that maybe doing something like this would probably bring some information out so that the big entities will know that, okay, either we are on the right path. If we are not, then this is what we need to do to be on the right path. So I think it is the lack of knowledge, or probably they think we are on a fault-finding mission, which is not the situation.
We've already spoken about some specific situations of those children who are actually trafficked and what they go through, from starvation as a tool of manipulating them, sexploitation, among others, and even creating a rift between them and their families and all of that. We've spoken about those. When you look at our situation in Ghana, however, just how much do we stand to lose? And I'll put that question to both of you. If we don't tackle this problem head on, what could this mean for our society, the fabric of society, financially, socially, economically? Briefly on that, both of you. I'll start with you,
So I'll say it means a loss. A lot of loss to the country in terms of human resource, because the greatest of all the resources is human. Is the human beings who think and bring the innovations and drive industry and everything. So look at the numbers that we are talking about, and imagine that all these children do not get an opportunity to complete a basic or secondary education. They don't get an opportunity to develop any other skill apart from fishing. It will interest you to know, when they are there, a key component of the indoctrination is that they don't even allow them to know numbers like money. So that, if you give a child 1 cedi, buy something 50 pesos, how much are you to bring back? They don't teach them that. And the reason is, they don't want them to understand the value of things so that they can continue to exploit them. So you can imagine that if you are there from 5 to about 16 years, 17 years, and you come out, and you are now having to grapple with these things, when are you going to make up,
catch up,
and then become somebody who society can benefit from? So the loss, I think, is enormous to the country at large, to the individual families, and the more children we have there, once you have a child there, it perpetuates the situation. Other families get motivated, because if you are, the parents or the caregivers are there, the guardians are there, and occasionally somebody brings them some 100 Ghana cedis during festivals, like the coastal areas. During the festival, someone will come and then, this is 200 cedis or 100 cedis, and that is a lot of money to them. Others get motivated to do that. So the more we delay in tackling this, the more children are driven into it, and the more we lose as a country.
Right. The UN, in talking about this, makes mention of the fact that trafficking in persons is a serious crime and a grave violation of human rights. So to cap off the conversation on that same point, right before we wrap with your call to action, what would you say?
Well, in terms of the human resource, I think that Enoch has spoken extensively. I think that we should just look at the numbers and look at the wastage. If at the age of 13, when I escaped, if I had not had the courage at that time, or I don't even know what came.
So you ran away?
Yes, ran away. I wouldn't have been sitting here being able to have this conversation with you. So it would be a human resource that would have been lost, right? In the same way, I would say that I was not the most talented person on that lake. There were more children who were more talented than me. But unfortunately, they didn't get the opportunity to escape. So they couldn't go to school. So they couldn't become the banker like I became. They couldn't become the person who has now employed almost 300 people in my organization and my businesses. So me alone, with that small talent, now employs over almost 300 employees. Just imagine all those others, if they had been able to be freed and gone to school. If even each one of them was able to employ,
what they could have become
10, or even have their own lives back, it would have been a human resource profit to the country. So that's why we all have to take steps.
Okay.
If I had the opportunity to see some of the pictures, I would have explained to you the actual physical implications of what's happening.
All right. So your call to action is in less than a minute.
Well, I would say that everyone should come on board. We, as an organization, are doing our best. We've rescued over 1,800. That's about 1,800 of those children we are talking about. We need support to do the work that we are doing, but more importantly, government itself would have to allocate money, that's budget, to its own institutions, as I have always said, to Human Trafficking Secretariat, Anti-Human Trafficking Unit of Ghana Police Service,
okay,
etc.
All right. Enoch?
Yeah, so I will ask for greater collaboration between civil society organizations and also with government institutions. The issue of trafficking requires a holistic approach. And so CSOs, NGOs, and then the government institutions ought to work together in a collaborative manner to be able to combat trafficking, especially involving children.
All right. Thank you so much. And this has been our conversation on the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. If you're trafficking, by and by, you will be nabbed. And I think there should be stiffer penalties as well for parents who engage in this. James Kofi Annan is president, Challenging Heights. They have been working over the years to stem the tide of trafficking, modern-day slavery, if you like. Enoch Derry Pufar is programs director with Challenging Heights. Once more, thank you for joining us and continue with the good work.
Thank you.
And that is how we cap off this conversation for today. But there's still a lot more coming your way as we deliberate on the mid-year budget review to be presented today in Parliament. Today, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will be doing that. After all the flip-flopping and the back and forth, it will be delivered. But what are your expectations? We'll be interacting with those who are doyens in economics and finance to find out what their thoughts are. We'll be talking about the different aspects of our economy and also deliberating with banking consultants. That conversation up next on the AM Show.